I'm going to be very honest. In producing this next episode, I had to sit with an internal resistance because this isn't something I've mastered. This is something I'm still moving through in real time, and there's a certain level of vulnerability in that. In choosing to speak while you're still healing, while you're still learning, while you're still finding your way back to yourself. But what I've come to understand is this. Every time I choose to sit down with myself instead of running, every time I choose reflection instead of distraction, every time I choose to realign and ground myself, that's a win. Not because it means I've arrived, but because it means I didn't abandon myself. And maybe that's what this episode really is. Not a declaration of having it all figured out, but a declaration of still choosing to come home to myself. Today, we're not going to talk about them. We're not dissecting what they did. We're not building a case for why someone else was wrong. Today, we're talking about us. This is about accountability, and more specifically, the moments where sometimes we are the problem. Not because we're bad people, but because we're wounded people. And unhealed wounds don't stay quiet. They project. They deflect. They protect themselves at all costs. So if you're feeling resistance rising right now, I want to encourage you to stay with me in this conversation. This isn't about blame. This is about liberation. Because the first step toward becoming free is looking inward. See, I believe we've all been here before. We mess up. We overreact. We say things we regret. And instead of owning it, we deflect by saying things like, well, they triggered me. Well, they should have known. Well, if they didn't say this or hadn't done that. And see, two things can exist at the same time. Someone can hurt you, but you're still responsible for how you respond. That tightening you feel when you begin to realize that, that's ego. And ego is a silent driver behind so much of what we don't want to see in ourselves. Ego can be tricky because it can disguise itself as confidence, pride, or self-protection. But true confidence doesn't fear reflection. Ego does. Ego is the part of us that says, I can't be wrong. I can't look bad. I can't lose. Ego protects your image, not your growth. And when image becomes more important than integrity, relationships suffer. Ego shows up in the little things like interrupting apologies, justifying harsh words, refusing to send the message, replaying how you were wronged but skipping your part. Ego whispers, if I admit fault, I'm less than. But in reality, when ego runs the show, it's your connections that shrink. And the hardest part about ego is that most of the time we don't even realize it's happening because ego doesn't feel loud when you're in it. It feels justified. It feels righteous. It feels like self-respect. But let me offer you something to sit with. Studying yourself is one of the most life-changing decisions you can make. When you start paying attention to why you react the way you do, what you're protecting, what you're afraid of losing, what patterns you keep repeating, you stop living on autopilot. And autopilot will have you ruining things while convincing yourself you're the victim. Self-awareness interrupts that. Self-awareness humbles you. Self-awareness frees you. Because once you see yourself clearly, ego has fewer places to hide. And when ego is louder than accountability, we start avoiding. And avoidance is ego's quiet partner. It says, if I don't face it, I don't have to feel it. Let me give you a real example. Have you ever been in a relationship? And I'm not necessarily talking about a romantic relationship. This could be a friendship where you can feel the shift. Nothing dramatic happened. No argument. No blow up. It just feels different. Their texts get shorter. The warmth in their voice isn't the same. The way they used to reach for you, they don't anymore. And of course you notice it, but you don't say anything. You don't ask, are we okay? Because asking makes it real. Asking opens the door to an answer you might not be ready to hear. So instead, you play it cool. You act normal. You laugh, you smile, you tell yourself, they're just tired. They're just stressed. It's nothing. But that's avoidance. Not because you don't care, but because you care so much you're afraid of what the truth might do to you. Avoidance convinces you that silence is safety, that if you don't touch it, it can't hurt you. But the truth is, it's already hurting you. If you feel it in the distance, you feel it in the disconnection. You feel it in the version of yourself that's shrinking just to keep the peace. Avoidance protects the ego, but it abandons the soul. Because healing, clarity, alignment, they only exist on the other side of facing it. And the moment you finally say, hey, something feels different, that's not weakness, that's courage. That's self-respect. That's choosing truth over temporary comfort. Avoidance can look calm, even peaceful at times. It can be detached, make you feel unbothered. But that calm can be dangerous. Unresolved pain doesn't disappear, it relocates. Avoidance can show up as changing the subject, shutting down, ghosting instead of apologizing, waiting for them to reach out first, And it can become a cycle that can only break when honesty enters the room. And this is where we have to be honest about something uncomfortable. Some of us call it protecting our peace, when really we're avoiding accountability. We disappear when conversations get hard. We go quiet when we're confronted. We say we need space but never return and take responsibility. And yes, space can be healthy. Space can be necessary at times. But disappearing, leaving someone confused, leaving someone unheard, leaving someone carrying the weight alone, that's not healing, that's avoidance. Real peace doesn't come from avoiding hard conversations. It comes from handling them, from staying long enough to repair what ego wants to abandon. Because if every hard moment makes you detach, you're not protecting peace, you're protecting ego. And honesty requires courage, which brings us to something even deeper. The ways we abandon ourselves before anyone else. Most of the time we hurt others because we've hurt ourselves. Every time we silence our truth, ignore our intuition, or betray our boundaries, we abandon ourselves. And abandoned parts react defensive, reactive, quick to blame, slow to apologize. So when we lash out, it's rarely just about the other person. It's about the pain we've never addressed. And ego tries to hide it, but hiding only deepens it. So we get to the question that haunts us. Do I reach out? Or do I stay the villain in their story? Ego whispers, if you apologize, you lose. If you reach out, they'll have power over you. But accountability isn't about power. It's about alignment. Sometimes you apologize not to fix the relationship, but to fix your integrity. And that takes strength. So let's take a moment to redefine this. Accountability isn't weakness. It's strength. It takes strength to say, I was wrong. It takes strength to sit in discomfort. It takes strength to resist defensiveness. Most people double down. Strength leans in. Strength chooses growth over ego. And when you choose growth over ego, you protect your relationships instead of sabotaging them. What you can acknowledge, you can change. And change is how cycles break. So let's be real. A lot of people stay stuck, not because they don't know better, but because becoming better requires change. And change requires letting go of the version that you felt safe in. It requires humility. It requires discomfort. It requires choosing growth over comfortability. Some people choose suffering because the solution demands a different life, a different mindset, a different level of accountability. And accountability asks you to become someone new. Cycles don't break with awareness alone. They break with interruption. Pause before defending. Reflect before reacting. Speak before disappearing. Healing isn't perfection. It's accountability faster. It's ego quieter. It's repair sooner. And part of breaking cycles is learning the difference between pausing and avoiding. Because maturity isn't reacting instantly. Maturity is responding intentionally. Sometimes you do need to step away, to regulate, to breathe, to think clearly. But maturity always comes back. Avoidance leaves things unfinished. Maturity returns to repair them. One protects ego, the other builds trust. And trust starts with being someone who stays. If something stirred in you today, that's not a coincidence. Ask yourself, where has ego been louder than integrity? Where am I avoiding? Who have I hurt? Where do I owe honesty? And then act. Send the message. Make the call. Write the apology. Or start internally. Because awareness without action is just comfortable stagnation. And before moving forward, forgive yourself. Not to excuse behavior, but to release shame. You deserve peace, not for them, for you. Because self-forgiveness is not letting yourself off the hook. It's letting yourself out of the prison. It's making peace with the version of you that didn't know how to do better yet. It's understanding you were surviving with the tools you had, and now you're choosing differently. Accountability says I was wrong. Self-forgiveness says, and I'm still worthy of healing. You can't evolve while at war with yourself. Forgive, learn, move differently. Accountability isn't punishment, it's freedom. The moment ego gets quieter, growth gets louder. We can do better, not by being flawless, but by being honest. I was wrong. I'm learning. I'm growing. Because at the end of the day, accountability isn't about shame. It's about freedom. Freedom from patterns. Freedom from ego. Freedom from becoming someone you were never meant to stay. And remember, the person you've been avoiding the hardest to face is the one staring back at you in the mirror. And now that we've gone through this entire conversation together, I know it's not easy, but I do believe in change. And I do believe there's power in reflection. So because of that, I want to leave you with these last two questions. Who are you still avoiding in yourself? What would happen if you finally faced yourself with honesty and compassion?